I'm not lying when I say Kiosk might be the best indie horror cooking game, or the only one probably. Serving hot dogs to Pennywise the Clown might seem like kind of a gimmick, and that's because it is. Kiosk is a game made by solo indie dev Vivi, and it's about the true horrors experienced by those brave enough to have worked night shift. There's an endless mode and a relaxful mode, which, including the story mode, is just the right amount of content for $4. And there might be hints of a bigger mystery or ARG, because it says here in the game's description that you have to piece together the truth, and it seems like the story is all pretty spelled out in the game. Or is this mystery just AI-generated marketing fluff? To figure out this supposed mystery, let's look at the events in Kiosk, go over any parts of the story that might get overlooked, and cover any parts that feel intentionally vague, like what these jump scares actually are. So let's get into it. This is the story of Kiosk. Oh, and spoilers ahead, obviously. Five Nights at Kiosk, starts in a fast food kitchen. You can see a sink which you can't use, and some knives that you can definitely use. There's a note on the wall, but before you can check it, you get a call from your manager. He gives you the rundown about how your job is to make food for customers, how your shift ends at midnight, and how you can check the cookbook if you get lost. He also tells you good luck because the last guy that worked this shift didn't last very long. Apparently, he had been acting strange until he just stopped showing up. Your manager says the ex-employee was leaving random notes around the kitchen, but you should just ignore them. So obviously, the first thing you do is check the notes, which say things like, "I think he follows me home at night," and "I'm really scared," and "Don't trust his lies." Pretty standard notes from a night shift worker, really. As you're reading your first note, your first customer comes up, and you're introduced to the gameplay loop. If you've ever played a cooking game before, you're probably familiar with the premise: put food in place, put stuff on food, deliver food. Throwing stuff is actually really fun in this game, and the controls feel tighter than I was expecting, well balanced. So yeah, right now it's just hot dogs and sodas and stuff, but every day will bring new food items. Your first customer, Red Shirt Lady, says she doesn't like going out at night, but those floor hot dogs are just too tempting. Your third customer is this creepy guy wearing sunglasses at night. He wears his sunglasses at night, so he can, well, you'll see. After you make his order, and perfectly I might add, he pulls the oldest trick in the book and runs away when you turn around. Right after this, the power goes out, and when you hit the circuit breaker to turn it back on, you're hit with your first jump scare. These ghostly apparitions make up the majority of the horror elements in this game, and while they're never fully explained, at the end I'll cover my theories as to what's causing them. The next customer serves you a little more backstory into the ex-employee that vanished. He says they were friends, but one day the guy became paranoid, and the last time he saw him, he could see fear in his eyes, which, yeah, working here, I'm sure. You also make food for a few more characters, like this guy who just got off work from the factory getting food for his family, and this guy who's into animals, like really into animals. So pro tip here, every day I exit out of the game, which clears the table and reloads the supplies in the kitchen. This keeps me from having to go into the storage room. Day 2 starts out the same as day 1. You get a phone call from your boss telling you he bought a coffee machine, so you're a barista now apparently. Don't you need a liberal arts degree for that? You serve a few more customers, including this woman who, on the next day, reveals she's a food inspector, and she doesn't understand why people keep complaining. Me neither, lady. One of the next customers to walk up is Pennywise the Clown, I guess, and I will be with you in one moment. He's not really scary, he's just like a chill guy. And yeah, like the power goes out again as soon as he leaves, but like he's fine. The guy with the wife and kids is back, except that part isn't true anymore. Apparently his wife left him, and now he wants 4 beers. Easiest order of the night, my dude, come back soon. Spoiler alert, he does not come back anywhere ever again. But right after this, the clock strikes midnight, and it's time to clock out. A new day brings another call from your boss, and it looks like today you're adding salad to the menu. This is when the game's knife play really starts opening up. Your first customer is a police officer that asks you if you know anything about the ex-employee's disappearance. You say no, he orders and leaves. But after a few more regulars, the guy with the sunglasses is back. You make him a very reasonable offer that he just needs to pay for his food, and he says, "Did you just refuse to serve your master? You made a huge mistake, and you'll pay." Yeah, speaking of, you do not get paid enough for this. I'm guessing, money doesn't really go anywhere in this game. The next customer asks you if you heard about the car crash yesterday. He tells you that the guy who crashed had a wife who left him, sounds familiar, and that he had alcohol in his bloodstream. Now that I have no idea what that's about. But yeah, don't drink and drive. Right after he leaves, the lights go out again. When you go to turn them back on, you're given another jump scare. This one is like a spectral image of the guy who crashed his car. You hear sirens before it all disappears, and another customer walks up to the service window. You're introduced to a few more regulars, like this student who asks if the strange stories about this place are true. So this is where the theory that these ghostly images are all in this guy's head starts coming together. Not only did we learn that the last guy quit after going paranoid, but now we have customers fear dumping onto the late shift player character. Plus, with all the strange people you meet and this last jump scare coming right after you found out one of your regulars just it definitely seems like these ghosts could be caused by your character's mental anguish. Or there could be something else going on. We'll get to that soon. Right after she leaves, the alarm goes off, and it's time for another day. Okay, so up on the menu today is eggs and sausages. Delicious. Also, this is my favorite dish to make. Something about hucking these eggs just feels super satisfying. Your first customer is Red Shirt Lady, who talks about, maybe she watches too many horror movies, but she feels like she's being followed. The friend of the ex-employee is back, and he has a terrifying update. He says the police found out what happened to the other guy, and that he was in the park 50 times. There's another jump scare here when you turn around, just kind of another ephemeral spirit thing next to the door. The rest of the night goes by pretty normally, as normal as possible for the night shift. Your last customer is the student again, who does more fear dumping, and after that conversation, it's time to clock out. On the next day, your boss calls you again. He tells you to wash your hands, an impossible task, and tells you that pancakes are now on the menu. This night goes by mostly normally, again as normal as possible, until you get a random phone call that says, "I can sense your fear." This is similar to what the friend said about the ex-employee, and it won't be the last time you hear something like this. Eventually, the police officer returns and tells you about finding the ex-employee in the park. He asks if there's been anything strange going on lately, and you say yes, there's a man coming around wearing sunglasses at night, and it's not even the 1980s. And for some reason, you just leave out the ominous phone call. Maybe the night shift worker is just getting numb to it all, I don't know. When the officer leaves, the lights go out again, and there's another jump scare as you try to reset the circuit breaker. Oh, and when you come back, there's rats now. Another pro tip I found standing in this corner allowed me to hit it just right. And after serving your favorite customer, it's time for day 6. When your shift starts, your boss calls you again, but this time he wants to talk about the guy who ran off without paying. How did he hear about this exactly? Did the police officer tell him? Because if so, you'd think all the surrounding details would be much more concerning. Oh, and you have a fryer now. Priorities. After serving the same interesting bunch, the lights go out again. When you return from switching the circuit breaker, a different jump scare ghost climbs through the service window and then just disappears again. Your last customer tells you to stay safe, and then it's off to the final day. On day 7, instead of a phone call, your shift starts with the police officer coming to the service window. He tells you that they have a witness who ID'd a suspect matching your description, the description you gave the cops about the guy. You learn the suspect escaped from prison, that he's extremely dangerous, and also the cop would like 2 coffees on the double. Red Shirt Lady also shows up on the last day. She tells you that she avoids going near the park since the incident, that the perp's image is plastered all over the news, and that she's afraid she'll run into him. After this, your last jump scare ghost falls onto the grill. After a few more customers, the lights go out for the final time. When you flip the circuit breaker and return, there's now a gift with a note in the service window. The note reads "Turn around," and when you do, knife-wielding sunglasses man rushes towards you. If you brought a knife to this knife fight, and if your aim doesn't totally suck like mine, you can open the escaped convict's hamburger pack and save the day. Roll credits. So that's the story of Kiosk, and while the Steam description says we need to piece together the clues and find the truth behind the disappearance, I think that's, maybe covered in the story, like explicitly told to you on several occasions. So I think this paragraph might be AI generated, but what stands out to me are the vague jump scare ghosts. Are they just a figment of the man's dwindling mental state? If so, how do the ghosts seem to predict the events in the game? Is the man maybe aware of the dangers that face him? Let's look into it. So the evidence of all of this being driven by paranoia is pretty strong. Everyone seems to be talking about how creepy it is working night shift, you have to deal with these strange customers, and you even have a conversation about how the last guy went missing because of his paranoia, which turned out not to be true. We'll circle back to that in a minute. Plus, apparitions like the car crash ghost appearing after finding out that's what happened to the guy definitely makes it seem like the ghosts are just your paranoid mind playing tricks on you. But I think there's something a little more going on here. I think the food is poisoned. You see, strychnine is— no, I'm just kidding. I wanted to do like a MatPat thing. I think these apparitions could be benevolent spirits, ghost buddies, if you will, warning the player about their impending doom. For the most part, the lights flickering on and off seem to be tied to the apparition's appearance. They seem to be warning the player of future events, and their appearance seems to carry a message for the player. Okay, a little weaker of an explanation, but hear me out. It appears Sunglasses Man was stalking the ex-employee before he killed him, and he might have been stalking other NPCs as well. The ex-employee wrote notes around the kitchen which went ignored by your boss, just like the police report. This also explains the lights shutting off and the jump scares in an in-game universe sort of way, because turning off the power is probably how the Sunglasses Man sneaks into the kitchen, so you were being trained to stay on your toes after you turn the power back on. So then why would this car crash guy appear? Well, maybe this kiosk, or short order kitchen or whatever, is a little haunted. Maybe it's not just benevolent spirits that are able to infect the room, and you're being reminded of your involvement in his or maybe all of this is just in this guy's head. Honestly, it does kind of seem like that just might be it. But that's just a theory or whatever, so let me know which one you think is right, or if I got the whole thing totally wrong and missed a ton of notes. And if you like the content, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.